Ladies and gentlemen, Nancy Pelosi and Democrats suddenly become doves after not talking about foreign policy. None of the Democrats spoke about foreign policy for the 8 or 9 sham, charade, bogus farce of debates they had. They didn't care about foreign policy. President Trump engaged in the military action. Then suddenly they're the big foreign policy mavens, the big foreign policy doves. They're the anti-war crowd now, kind of. Then they're saying, well, we're going to limit President Trump's ability to engage in military action against Iran. Now, on the surface, that would sound good to me. When you look, not even just a little deeper, is it coupled with a full military withdrawal from the Middle East? Is it bringing home 5,000 Americans and 5,000 Americans in Iraq, 10,000 American soldiers in Afghanistan, for what? Removing the 40,000 personnel, contractors. I did a segment on this channel talking about there's technically 60,000 American personnel in both countries. 60,000, okay? Then you have Democrats saying, well, do you want to remove Americans from Germany and Japan? There's no correlation. Those aren't counterinsurgency conflicts. Since 1945, both countries wanted us there. Iraq, the parliament actually voted us out the other day, and that was only because of Trump's military action. So, on the surface, one would think that I would want to support this. There's a part of me that finds this good in that at least there are Democrats that are kind of aware now that military action has unintended consequences. Notice, however, that when President Trump engages in military or engages in belligerent behavior, he sent warships to the Korean Peninsula. Months later, he was then the first president to step foot in North Korea. Here, a Trump Nobel Peace Prize. South Korea's leader likes the idea. Talks about Moon Jae-in. This is by Cho Sang-hun. New York Times. President Trump and President Moon Jae-in of South Korea at the White House in 2017. This is a 2018 article talking about how the president of South Korea wanted Trump to get the Nobel Peace Prize. Prior to the beginning of a peace process between North and South Korea, Trump was acting like a madman, according to Democrats. Media said we're going to have Armageddon. It's going to be the start of the end of the world, the apocalypse. And then they pivoted from that and said, no, Trump doesn't deserve the Nobel Peace Prize. In fact, what he did is not that big of a deal. It's a photo op. What he did is the biggest foreign policy achievement since the fall of the Berlin Wall, which I guess you can say that you can credit Reagan, or you could just say the Soviet Union was going to fall anyway. Look, it was the biggest, most monumental achievement in foreign policy since the fall of the Berlin Wall. And President Trump presided over that. Democrats have swept that under the rug. Media has almost practically erased that from history, even though Trump should be running on that. With Iran, if any resolution, which the House is going to vote on to curb Trump's military behavior or military decisions, any resolution that doesn't involve bringing Americans back, any resolution that doesn't involve a full withdrawal from Iraq, from Afghanistan, from other regions that President Obama got us into, Syria, Yemen, those countries too, he got us into. He got us into more countries than even George W. Bush. He won the Nobel Peace Prize. And where were the resolutions trying to curb, from Republicans too, but where were the resolutions from Democrats trying to curb President Obama's drones? Endless. They're hypocrites. They want to be the ones in charge to actually create greater chaos and mayhem. We're never going to have a war with Iran, ever, 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 ever. Anybody who says that doesn't understand that Iran is experiencing a devastating recession right now. They have 30% inflation. They have 30% unemployment in certain places. The IMF has forecast that they'll have zero economic growth. So part of Trump's strategy overall is to bring Americans, to withdraw Americans from the Middle East. The New York Times has spoken about this. That was part of the insult, part of the petulant type of rebuttal to initially before the Iraqi parliament actually voted to kick us out. All you heard on social media from Democrats was and liberals. I'm not on Twitter. I'm not on Facebook, but you can just type in. You see what's going on. Oh, still like your anti-war president? Is he still going to bring home Americans? And they say, well, he's bringing Americans to... Yeah, because the embassy was under attack. That's why. Then Trump retaliated. So you cannot retaliate now. So being anti-war doesn't mean you're a pacifist. I'm not saying that I wouldn't actually have droned that general. That's not something that I agree with. So I'm against that because I'm against going after foreign leaders. I don't think we should do that because then God forbid they could try to go after us. So I'm against that. But it actually kind of worked out. Inadvertently, Trump's decision making is infinitely better than President Obama's. There are now slave auctions in Libya going on because of Clinton, Obama, and Biden. They don't care. The refugee crisis in the world has been exacerbated because Biden and Clinton and President Obama toppled and really destroyed Libya. There are now regions in Libya that are not that the groups that I can't even name on YouTube control, and their offshoots and different other groups too, because there's that group and then there's it's like a family tree of heinous political military organizations. The point is, this is yet another political stunt by Democrats, and it's hilarious too because then they're getting told by their own strategists, hey, try not to be try not to defend the government in Iran too much, while at the same time go after Trump, but try not to defend them so they're caught between a rock and a hard place. They're actually the party of war and militancy. They're the hawks, not Trump. Not Trump. Social media, social media wasn't really a thing in 2011, 2010. 2011, when President Obama led the NATO intervention in Libya, toppled the government there, he simply just let it fall into a complete catastrophe. He did so under the guise of trying to save lives. He didn't save lives. He created absolute devastation and destruction. Tens of thousands of people lost their lives. Tens of thousands because of the NATO intervention. And people had to flee. And it's just, even to this day, notice Democrats don't talk about Libya, except for the occasional CNN article talking about actual slave auctions. And then they say, well, was it really Obama's fault? Yes, it is. But then there are articles, thanks Hillary Clinton, thanks Obama. The issue here is he also got us into Syria. He also got us into Yemen, President Obama. No resolution trying to curb either Obama or Bush. And you have Pelosi says, Pelosi says invasion of Iraq was wrong. Well, she actually knew that, and these are the people who revere the intelligence community. They're always wrong on everything. Hold on one second. She actually admitted the other day, it was wrong then and the intelligence wasn't there. Knowing what we knew then, the intelligence did not support the threat, Pelosi said. She literally admits that she voted alongside Cheney and Rumsfeld and Bush and Clinton and Biden, and she pushed for the reason we're there. The reason we're there now. She pushed for the interventions and regime changes and failed foreign policy, which is the reason we're there now, knowing that there were intelligence failures. This is Nancy Pelosi, the same person who is now pushing a resolution to curb President Trump's military action. First of all, it's toothless. They can't. It's just a resolution. It's like the Green New Deal resolution. It's a whole lot of talk. At the end of the day, meaningless. I would actually want, in addition, first and foremost, Americans being brought home. First and foremost, Americans being brought home tomorrow. The Iraqi parliament voted on it. But to do away with the authorization for use of military force, which President Trump still has, which he can send without congressional approval for like 30 to 90 days, something like that, American soldiers anywhere in the world. So thousands and thousands of American soldiers anywhere in the world for combat missions. This is the authorization for use of military force. And that is a Bush-era law that they didn't remove from President Trump. You see, they talk a big game. They're actually the most militant hawkish side. So on the surface, if you really don't know much about it, if you really don't really care about a true anti-war stance, which is bringing home Americans, because it has nothing to do, leaving American soldiers there is not like Germany and Japan. These aren't wars that have ended. These wars are ongoing. Okay, in 1945, the wars ended in both Germany and Japan. The Iraq and Afghanistan wars have not really ended, even though you can look on Wikipedia and say, oh, yeah, President Obama ended the war officially. It didn't end. It didn't end. There are still military engagements all the time, where American soldiers are defending themselves from adversaries. So, and conducting offensive operations also. So the issue here is, do you really think that Pelosi is doing this to bring home Americans? No. Do you really think Pelosi is doing this because she wants to limit American foreign policy in terms of interventions and regime changes and militancy? Of course not. She's doing it only because Democrats and media and Hollywood, they don't care about war. Like, they talk a big game about opposing the Iraq war, and then I know people who talk a big game about opposing the Iraq war, and then in the same breath say, I voted for Clinton. The hashtag I voted for Hillary, that should show, if you spread that hashtag, that should show that you really don't know much about foreign policy. You voted for the reason we're still there. You voted for the original reason. You voted for the woman who I voted for Hillary Clinton trend amid rising tensions with Iran. She was more hawkish than Trump. And she's never had a foreign policy decision ever that worked out. Trump, President Moon Jae-in of South Korea, said deserved the Nobel Peace Prize. Trump was the first president to step foot in North Korea. Clinton is the first Secretary of State to say, hey, we came, we saw. And then she was bragging about the destruction of Libya. So it's interesting how, like, Democrats say, oh my God, he called a country, Trump in Africa, a bad name, said a Democratic staffer without any evidence. Okay, so calling a country a bad name, and we have no idea what was being said, and actually destroying a country, Libya, in Africa. Democrats are okay with that. Democrats are okay with voting for the same person who voted to get us into Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld's never-ending conflicts and wars. And then they say, well, give us the keys back to the car. They crash the car with Iraq, Afghanistan, and then that Bush crashes the car along with Hillary and Biden and Pelosi. They all crash the car. Then they give the keys to President Obama. He crashes the car with Libya and Syria and Yemen and endless drones and getting us into other places as well. So they total like 20 cars. Then Trump gets behind the wheel. And suddenly it's like you finally get to your destination with North Korea, to where there's a beginning of something between North and South Korea. There's actually now détente. There's actually the beginning of rapprochement. There's the beginning of some kind of peace deal. And he gets no credit at all, zero credit. So he doesn't total the car, but they're upset with him because, oh, well, you know, you did the same. You didn't even do half of what we did. Okay. They say, oh, well, look what he did with the general. Obama did a million times worse with his drone campaigns. They say, well, you know what? We're going to take the keys away from you because your strategies haven't proven to work out, even though they have. President Obama's deal with Iran, the nuclear deal, was a horrendous deal. It was the worst deal ever for the United States. The worst deal ever. We lost big time on that deal. And this is then they say, well, you know what? Look at Trump. He said, and I explained this. Iran's $300 billion shakedown, foreign policy. The whole point is it's succinctly put right here, April 16, 2015. Sanctions relief should be a reward for ending Iran's nuclear program. But the current deal is a massive payment to temporarily put it on hold. Okay, the assets, the money, yeah, the rebuttal, the money was theirs. Yeah, okay, it was their government's money, that's true, but it was frozen in foreign countries for a reason, because they were building a nuke program. That's why it was frozen, and it was only supposed to be unfrozen when they ceased doing that. When there were assurances or guarantees that they had ended the program. If you look under President Obama's fantastic deal, you had 23. I believe it was Iran has fired 23 ballistic missiles. 23 ballistic missiles since the start of the 2015 nuclear deal. 23, okay? 23 ballistic missiles since the start of 2015 nuclear deal. So when Trump got out of the deal, and military sites were off limits to inspectors. So what kind of horrible deal is, well, other countries agreed. So what? They're wrong on everything also. You could put, no offense, God bless you if you watch in the UK, France, okay? You could put the governments and the leadership, the establishment, the UK, France, all the Western countries that love the Iran deal, and the Democratic establishment and the Republican establishment, they're rarely right on anything. They can't even get the EU straight. People want Brexit, they want to leave. They can't even form a union in Europe where people don't just want to get out. Or like they complain about bailing out other countries. It's like, they don't even, it's not even working out. And that's not even a military alliance. Then they talk, oh, well, NATO was not meant to intervene in countries or even to train. Like the New York Times, as one journalist, the training has stopped in Iraq because the NATO training has stopped. He stopped the NATO training. The NATO shouldn't even be part of it. It's been 20 years. We haven't spent enough trillions of dollars, billions of dollars, weaponry, everything. You have enough? Not enough? NATO has to be part of the training? And then they say, well, NATO strikes are, if countries want to engage in airstrikes, they should do so. for their national interest, and they can coordinate, you don't need NATO. Like, well, how can they coordinate without NATO? It's not even, Russia doesn't even really care about NATO. We're not going to have, we already done that, it was a Cold War relic. It only helps other countries. It doesn't help us. And Democrats and Republicans, establishment Democrats and Republicans think, well, you know what? It just makes us stronger because other countries will go ahead and follow our lead. Yeah, that's bad because our lead is usually short-sighted, especially when it's establishment Democrats and Republicans. So, no, I mean, it is good that you get a rebuke of, I guess, militancy. But if it's not coupled with Americans being brought home, it's completely worthless. And it's not, in my view, anti-war. Maybe if you're a Democrat, you're so used to like destroying things and militancy and accepting, horrible destruction of countries that you can pivot on a dime and say, "Oh yeah, well, you're not for this? Oh, okay." Well, no, I'm not. If it was coupled, if Pelosi said bring home Americans tomorrow, this was part of the resolution, I would 100% wholeheartedly, and I would say President Trump would be wrong, absolutely wrong, in not accepting the terms of the resolution if it also meant we leave that region completely, like Reagan did in Beirut. But give me your thoughts below. It's just another way for Democrats to try to say, well, he's not really president. He can't actually engage in his foreign policy, his strategy. And what he's trying to do is, you know what? And experts were, or quote unquote experts were saying this on CBS and others. The foreign policy experts, they were saying they're not really experts, whatever. They're saying, well, this actually, we won't be able to be in the Middle East anymore because of what Trump's done. Yeah, yes, exactly. And then I was watching that segment, then the Iraq Parliament kicks us out. So give me your thoughts below. What do you think about this resolution that Pelosi is going to vote on, or that Democrats are going to vote on? Give me your thoughts. Check out Goodman's other channel right there.